Picture this, a 5-star Division I football player just committed to the University of Texas. Now, if you're a fan of the University of Texas, you're thrilled that player's going there. If you're the coach that recruited that player, you're absolutely thrilled to have this guy on your team. And if you're the player itself, you're thinking, this is unbelievable. Not only do I get to go to the school that I always wanted to go to, the University of Texas, but I'm also getting a check for $100,000 per month or $1.2 million per year to play Division I football. And if you're me, I'm thinking about how could I make sure that this player pays the lowest amount in tax, optimizes his savings, and creates generational wealth with this single NIL deal. Hey everyone, if we haven't met before, my name is Jacob Turner. I'm a former Major League Baseball player, and I'm the co-founder of Moment Private Wealth, a financial planning firm that specifically helps athletes and entrepreneurs build and protect wealth. In today's video, we're going to walk through a specific story, a story that the names and the numbers have been changed, but a story that we see time and time again with the athletes we work with. A top recruit signing at a top school and getting paid top dollar in NIL and revenue sharing money. We're going to walk through how you can go from complete uncertainty as a player, remember you're 18 years old, to total confidence that you're doing this right by the end of this video, to understanding that this money that you're making today could truly turn into life-changing money in the future. Oh, and don't worry, if you're not a player like that, but you're just a fan, you want to better understand what does it actually look like for the player that just committed to your favorite school. Make sure you stay tuned because I'm going to show you a peek behind the curtain of what this actually looks like. Let's dive in. Now, I want to set the stage for us. Consider this player, we'll name him Jack. Jack is from California, and his dream school was the University of Texas. And when he signed there, he got $1.2 million in his first year to sign there. And you got to remember that Jack is 18 years old. He's never filed a tax return. He doesn't even know what taxes are. And he's thinking, I wonder how much of this I can actually spend. And we have to kind of go backwards and understand, well, what are we actually going to keep after taxes? So what I'm going to show you today is a plan that we built out for Jack. We're going to take all those questions, all the complexity that comes with these NIL and revenue sharing deals, and give you complete clarity on what this looks like, not just from a tax perspective, but also from a savings and spending perspective, and also from an investment perspective. I mentioned this earlier, but I'm going to show you how I can turn $1.2 million into generational wealth in the future with things that are completely inside of your control as an athlete. The number one starting point, and this is where I think a lot of athletes struggle with, is we get the money and we immediately think, well, what can we spend it on? And I have good news and bad news. I'm going to tell you first and foremost what you're going to spend it on, but you're not going to like it. In fact, the largest lifetime expense, the largest thing that you're ever going to buy as an athlete, it's going to be your tax bill. And you don't have a choice whether you want to buy it or not. You're paying that tax bill. So let me show you what this tax bill looks like to start with, and let me show you what it can look like if you have the proper planning in place. We're looking at two different scenarios here. On the left-hand side, we have scenario one. If Jack had absolutely no planning in place, he gets paid his $1.2 million. He has no tax planning. What does he end up with? And on the right-hand side, we have what it looks like if we do actually proactive tax planning, where we say, what can we do today to try to lower our lifetime tax bill, not just for today, but also for our entire life? And what I want to point to is both these scenarios have $1.2 million. That's the contract that Jack signed. But if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see that there's a $200,000 plus difference between the after-tax take-home pay. In fact, on the left-hand side, you can see that Jack is paying $483,000 in federal tax, another $127,000 in state taxes. So his effective tax rate before he spends a dollar is more than 50%. Versus on the right-hand side, you can see that Jack all of a sudden goes from paying $483,000 in federal taxes down to $394. He goes from paying $127,000 in state income taxes down to $0 for an effective tax rate of 33%. And the bottom line is this: with proactive tax planning, Jack takes home about $805,000 from his $1.2 million. And with no tax planning, he only takes home $588,000. So we're talking about a $200,000+ difference. And here's the reality of this situation. There are planning strategies that NIL and revenue sharing college athletes should be doing. But time and time again, I see them not making these moves and not making them early enough, or the money's coming in too late and they're making decisions after the fact. Remember, there is so much confusion around not only this money, but how do I maximize it? And that's what I'm going to show you right here. 4 key tax strategies that we used in Jack's situation to save him more than $200,000 in taxes. And the first one's state residency. Now, if you remember at the beginning of this conversation, we talked about the fact that Jack is from California. California has a top tax rate of 13.3%. And the way this NIL or revenue sharing money works is it will get taxed in your state of residency. So even though Jack went to the University of Texas, where there's no state income tax, if he never changes residency to the state of Texas, he'll still pay the 13.3% in California. So what we did was we said, hey, now that we're actually in Texas, we can make the argument that we are a full-time Texas resident. We're going to school there, we're working there, we're living there, we're spending our money there, and we went through the process of actually establishing Texas residency. This alone saved us about $127,000 in taxes. And the simple reason is this: Texas has no state income tax. California, 13.3%. The second move that we made was the entity selection. You see, NIL and revenue sharing money is taxed as what's called self-employment income. Think about you as a business of one. You are the business of Jack in this scenario. And in Jack's case, if he just takes the money, just all comes to him, he's going to be what's called a sole proprietor, which means that he's going to pay not only federal tax, not only state tax, but also self-employment tax on a lot of the money that he makes. And what we did was we said, hey, what if we shifted it? We set up an LLC, we taxed as an S corporation, we paid ourselves $190,000 in salary, which I'll get to that specific number in a second. Why did we choose $190,000? And we took the rest as distributions. Well, that helped us save quite a bit of money in taxes right there. Not only would it help us a little bit on self-employment taxes because Medicare is on the entire amount, but it also provides an additional opportunity from a retirement planning standpoint, which is the third piece here. Now, I mentioned we specifically targeted $190,000 in salary. So why was that? Well, you can contribute to what's called a solo 401k as an NIL or revenue sharing athlete. And what that means is you can contribute $24,500 as the employee of your business. Remember, you own your business of one, you're also the employee of the business. You can also contribute 25% of whatever your salary is if you have a salary like an S corporation in this scenario. So in Jack's case, we set the salary at $190,000 so that we could further maximize the solo 401k. What this means is we were able to get a total contribution of $72,000 in this solo 401k between employee and employer contributions. This is a tax savings today of about $26,000. It's a huge amount of money. In addition to that, we also maxed out a Roth IRA for Jack. Now, he was over the income threshold, but we did something called a backdoor Roth IRA strategy. It allows us to get $7,500 in there. And this money can grow tax-free, come out tax-free in retirement. And if Jack ever needs to use the money before retirement, he can actually go in and take out the initial $7,500 contribution, penalty-free and tax-free. And the fourth big move that we made here was we itemized our deductions. Now, if you are an athlete that's earning on the field income, you cannot deduct your agency fees. But if you are earning off the field income, like NIL or revenue sharing money, you can deduct your agent fees. And in this scenario, Jack's agent fees were 5% or $60,000. He was able to deduct that from his tax bill. We also helped him set up a business bank account to keep track of his business expenses. What were the expenses that he incurred to actually be able to earn this NIL money? It came out to about $20,000 for the year. So we were able to deduct a total of $80,000, $60,000 for the agent fees, $20,000 for the business expenses. Now, between these four moves, state residency, entity selection, retirement accounts, and itemized deductions, we were able to save Jack more than $200,000 in taxes. Now we can actually talk about what we actually want to be able to spend the money on. The way that we like to break this down is just in very simple fashion. I want to know, what is our average monthly expenses? What's our average monthly income? And then ultimately, what does that lead to from a surplus standpoint? And you can see in Jack's scenario here, he's making $1.2 million split between $190,000 in salary and a little over $1 million in total distributions, which leaves him with an after-tax take-home of about $805,000. Now, in Jack's scenario, we set a budget of about $5,000 a month. You got to remember, if you're a college athlete, a lot of those things that the school has for you, food, housing, etc., a lot of those things are going to be paid for. So when we're thinking about $5,000 a month, it's actually quite a bit of money to be able to spend because you're really spending it on things that you just truly enjoy spending the money on, which leaves Jack in his scenario with a monthly surplus of about $62,000. A quarterly surplus of about $186,000, and then a yearly surplus of about $745,000. And the next question that we need to be asking ourselves is, where should we be putting this money? And the first thing I always think about for athletes is we want to make sure that we have a proper emergency fund set up. I know one thing's for sure. Our life's going to change a lot as an athlete. I know for me, when I went from the 18 years old to 30 years old, my life changed a lot. If you're an NIL athlete, your life's going to change a lot from the time that you're 18 years old to 22 years old. So in Jack's scenario, we put $60,000 in his emergency fund. Now, how do we get to $60,000? Well, simply to years worth of our spending. $5,000 a month times 12, $60,000. And then we said, okay, we know how much we want to save after that, but what account should this be going into? And much like we talked about in the tax planning, we're going to put $7,500 in our Roth IRA. We're going to put $72,000 in our solo 401k, and then the rest of that money is going to be saved in what's called our taxable brokerage account, a little more than $605,000. Now, there's a very important distinction I want you to understand here. The money that we're putting in the Roth IRA, the money that we're putting in the solo 401k, this is retirement account money. This is our longest term money. The money that we're putting in our taxable account, well, we're investing it for the long term. We're going to have access to that money on day one. So if our life changes, if in the future we want to put a down payment on a house, we want to buy a wedding ring, we want to make a big purchase for a car, we want to take our family on a vacation, we can always tap into that taxable account. And this is why it's really important. If you're a college athlete, you need to understand this. You need to understand that not every single dollar needs to go or should go into retirement accounts. Yes, you will get a tax benefit for doing it. But if you over contribute to those accounts and you don't have enough money in either your emergency fund or your taxable brokerage account, you might be a little cash poor. And we never want to be in that situation because remember, your situation is going to change a lot from the time you're 18 to 22. Okay, so now we understand what our tax bill is going to be, how we could reduce it, what we're spending, what we're saving, what buckets it's going into, but how do we actually invest this money? And I want to show you in a really simplified fashion how we think about investing this money for athletes. We think about this in 3 portfolio stages. Stage 1 is the war chest. This is money that we need today or money that we're not taking on a ton of risk with. And you can see in this scenario for Jack, we have our estimated tax bill in there. Now remember, as a college athlete, you are not going to get taxes withheld. So you need to make sure you're setting aside money for your tax bill. We have $394,000 set aside for estimated taxes for Jack. We also have the emergency fund, $60,000. This is going into a high yield savings account where we're earning something on it, but we're not taking significant risk. And then you can see we have our taxable brokerage account. We have $121,000 in that account. Now, why is that account in bucket 1? Well, it's simply a portion of our total taxable investment portfolio, about 20% in this scenario. And the rest of the money that we have for Jack falls into our bucket 2, which is our core growth strategy. Think about this like our public market investments, our private real estate, our public real estate, things that we know are going to go up and down in value. But over time, we know they're going to have higher appreciation or they're going to make more money for us. And in this bucket, we have our Roth IRA, long-term money. We have our solo 401k, long-term money. And we have about 80% of our taxable brokerage account. One of the things I always preach to our athletes is we have to walk before we run. We should not be going into the deep end, diving in head first and thinking that we should invest everything with risk on assets on day one. The reality of this situation is if you're an 18 to 22-year-old and you're coming into millions of dollars as a college athlete, this is going to be the first time that you're ever investing this kind of money. You want to start slowly. You want to start a little bit more conservatively. You can always turn that dial up in the future, but it's much harder to turn that dial back down. And bucket 3, which we have on here, but we don't have any money in, is our aspirational bucket. This is going to be money that if we have another year of NIL or revenue sharing money, if we make it to the NFL in this scenario and we have a big signing bonus, all of a sudden we have enough money in buckets 1 and 2 to be able to live our lifestyle and we want to take on additional risk, things like private investments or venture capital, we can start looking to bucket 3. But on day 1 as a college athlete, I urge you, be very, very hesitant to be putting money in anything that's going to be locked up for a certain period of time. And that is the case with most investments that are in bucket 3. Private deals you cannot access on day 1. Venture capital is typically a 10-year runway. That is really important to understand outside of just whatever the potential rate of return is going to be. Now, I mentioned to you at the beginning of this video that we could take this $1.2 million and turn it into generational wealth. And I want to show you what this actually looks like when we bring all these different pieces together. The tax, the cash and savings, and the investment portfolio. And you can see here what a compounding power of a $1.2 million NIL deal turns into. So if Jack returns 8%, he has about $685,000 saved at age 18. What does it turn into at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, and 80? And you can see at age 30, he has a little over $1.7 million. At age 40, he has $3.7 million. At age 50, a little over $8 million. At age 60, he has $17 million. If you never spend another dollar, at age 70, he has $37 million. And at age 80, he has $80 million. Is this realistic that he will never spend a dollar from this? No, it's not. So why do I show it? I show it for a couple different reasons. Number 1, I want you to understand as a college athlete, the opportunity set that you have. The opportunity set that you have is this. You have the greatest superpower in your hands. You have time on your side. You have time to let this money grow, to let this money compound, and to let this money double. That is something that most people will not have. They will not have this time of money if they're even fortunate to have it until they're 50, 60, 70 years old. You have the opportunity to have it as an 18-year-old. And if you're in a scenario like Jack, you can use this money to truly create a generational impact, not just for you, but also for your family. Now, the reality is you might use some of this money along the way, but it's still really important for you to understand if you do all these things right and you let your greatest superpower take over time, to understand what this money can turn into. So instead of going out tomorrow and wanting to buy that Escalade or wanting to buy that super fancy watch wanting to take everybody on a vacation on day one, you need to understand what the opportunity set here is. And what I'm showing you is the opportunity set could be millions of dollars in the future. So if you're an athlete out there and you're coming into money and you're saying, I'm not sure what to do, I have more questions than I have clarity, whether you're a college athlete or whether you're a professional athlete. That's why we built this business, is to help people like you. That's why we built Moment, is to help people that have bet on themselves maximize the opportunity set that we have. That's why I'm so passionate about it. I've walked in your shoes. I've come into millions of dollars as an 18-year-old, and I've had all the same questions that you're having today. So my question for you is this: what are you doing today to get clarity around your money? Because if you don't do it today, you might look back and regret not planning on the upfront. As always, my goal is to help you get smarter with your money. Until next time, my friends.